Did anything at all make sense last night? Absolutely fucking no. I'm Nick Nightmare. Welcome to the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show, Raw review. And I don't even really want to do this review. It's a gloomy, crappy day here in New York City, and the rain falls from the sky like the tears of my inner wrestling child when I watch Monday Night Raw. So if you hear any noise or any funkiness in the background, it's the sound of the rain just pouring down, crashing into the pavement on the streets of New York. And it's a good metaphor for the way that I feel internally, because, you know, in all honesty, this show started out very good, and I liked where it seems to be going. The only exception being the Sasha versus Charlotte match, I was not looking forward to. I mean, we've seen it, 100 times already. If you include NXT and their whole entire history, you're done with this. It's just an epic failure on their part to produce content worthy of two superstars the caliber of Charlotte and Sasha Banks. The lack of the division has never been more prevalent than now, and you're seeing it more and more, because as much as they want to call this the final chapter all night, this ain't no final chapter. They're going to fight again at Roadblock, and expect Charlotte to win the title, because that seems to be the trend. These girls just keep flopping it back and forth almost every 2 weeks, as long as one of them is physically capable. It's terrible. And, you know, coming from a history that I know that I've watched for, like I've said on this podcast before, 35 years I have been watching the WWE product and all kinds of wrestling that I could possibly find. But they fail to use that history and apply it to now. Because back then they were killing it, and they knew how to build a superstar, how to extend a rivalry, how to write proper storylines and drag things out in a proper manner, and not just keep having match after match after match. Number one contenderships used to be built off of, you know, your record as a performer. And if you had like the number one and number two guy face off on a match, you could definitively have your number one contender. And that would be how you would get to the championship, or you would win a triple threat, or a battle royal, or like the Royal Rumble, essentially. When you win the Royal Rumble, you get a world title shot of your choice. And this is a very basic, very successful, proven formula for establishing number one contenders. This has not been used in the women's division. This has not been used in the tag team division, and it's definitely not being used in the main event program, because much like the women, they are not showcasing Roman Reigns or Kevin Owens in a proper light. These guys are having a match one-on-one, and Kevin Owens ends up going down to the Superman punch and the spear, and you make him look like a goddamn fool. He is your champion. He is supposed to be the marquee player on your roster. He's supposed to be the one leading the charge. Supposed to be a badass. Supposed to be taking on all comers. And if you're a heel, you're supposed to win by any means necessary, not just by having a friend or a lackey or a minion outside or a manager constantly interfering. That's a heel tactic, yes, but that's not the only one. You got the roll up of the tights. You could pull a weapon from the trunks, find a way to cheat to win. That's what Ric Flair used to do. That's what Shawn Michaels used to do. That's what any classic heel would tell you. And that's how you extend it, because you make the person, the good guy in the scenario that you want to succeed, be held off as long as possible, and just keep letting that champion weasel out every single twist and turn he could take to keep that title on his shoulder or waist, And it made the payoff more magical. Just like they did with Daniel Bryan. They may have stumbled across that and did it accidentally, because I really believe they were going nowhere with Daniel Bryan, and they did not want him to be the face of the company, but going against the grain was just too much at that point. And they had to cave in. So we got Daniel Bryan. And how magical was that? In the end, Yeselmania. It was something that has not happened since. And we are now at least 3 years removed from then. Daniel Bryan was the last megastar that the WWE created. And now they're just floating around, doing the same old shit, and playing hot potato with championships. And I don't like it. And it's nothing against the talent. This is purely against the creative direction of the show. The writers have no fucking clue how to use these women. Where is everybody else? Where is Nia Jax this week? Not only did we get overexposure of Sasha and Charlotte again, but we didn't even have any other girls compete on tonight's show. We got Sasha and Charlotte twice. It happened twice. Who cares? I certainly don't. I didn't give a shit at all. And I almost knew, because this hometown losing trend that they got going on, where if you're from this town and we perform in this town, you're going down. It's just got to stop. It's stupid. Why can't the people of Charlotte had a feel-good moment for their girl? Yeah, they popped for Sasha Banks, but that's because they got swept up in the moment. It was a false count anywhere match. When you're attending live, you get caught up. You get swept up. Even the most jaded of fans will find themselves cheering on the match if it gets the crowd ramped to that intensity. And personally, I believe Sasha and Charlotte lost their chemistry. The match was okay at the end of the night, but the first time they locked up that led to the double countout was just awful. It was awkward. It was hard for me to watch. And they put too much pressure on themselves. And I think you could see it. You see it in Charlotte's facials. You see her thinking too much. You see her going for something and just being slightly off and then kind of panicking and trying to do it again. If something don't work the first time, honey, just abandon it. Don't keep retrying to do it like you did with the table in the Hell in the Cell. And now you did here, where you tried to throw into a barricade. A simple spot, as in grab your opponent by the trunks, turn, and toss into the barricade. They couldn't get that spot. That is beyond all functional thought for me. I can't even process a word for that. It's like, how? You're Charlotte Flair. You are the established champion. Sasha Banks, who has a binder of work that cannot be compared to maybe any of the other girls, except maybe Bayley, because she was on the other side of the ring for most of it. It's terrible. It's terrible stuff. I don't know where they're going with it, and I don't care. The best possible scenario, with the inevitable rematch coming up at Roadblock for Sasha Banks and Charlotte, would be for Charlotte to win on pay-per-view, as they're trying to keep doing, but not by pinfall, and not by submission, and not win the title. Have Sasha Banks begin her heel turn right fucking now. And when she beats Charlotte, either by disqualification or count out, walking out on Charlotte or something, allowing her to win, but allowing Sasha Banks to retain the title, I think there's more money to be made in that. Charlotte could take a break, take a few weeks off and go away, and let Sasha Banks start to wrestle Nia Jax, start to wrestle Bayley, make the title mean something, start to defend it, build a reputation around it and around herself, and lead up into a WrestleMania match with Bayley, or a WrestleMania rematch with Charlotte. but let Charlotte fade away. We've seen and heard too much, and the addition of Dana Brooke did not help at all. So that's what I think they need to do. They need to let Sasha Banks retain the title and somehow allow Charlotte to win to maintain that winning streak that they're trying to push so hard. And that is my thoughts on that. Moving on. Let's get over and start with the show pretty much. We're going to run through it real quick. Started off with a very good highlight reel. Chris Jericho's guest was Kevin Owens, his best friend. Always golden mic work here. These guys were super entertaining, only to be interrupted by the one and only Superman Roman Reigns. And to his credit, he wasn't that bad. He obviously memorized his script very well because, as dry as it was entertaining. I get where he was trying to go. And he agitated Kevin Owens to the point where he told Chris Jericho to shut up. And he doesn't need his best friend. I don't need you. I don't need your list. I don't need nobody. I could take care of Roman Reigns on my own. Chris Jericho is upset by this, obviously. And the match is made. Owens versus Reigns. And if Reigns wins, he gets a shot at the Universal Championship. We all know this is coming. It's already predictable because that's going to be his opponent at Roadblock. Everybody knows it. It's already been advertised. So obviously, I don't know why, but to establish this, we needed a match against the Universal Champion. We'll get back to that in just a little bit. First match of the night featured Braun Strowman versus R-Truth. And once again, just like last week, Strowman just tears the Truth to shreds. And Sammy would eventually come out and try to make the save and help out R-Truth and Goldust, who were both just getting demolished by our big, dopey-faced Strowman. And this would lead Sammy to be getting crushed again. And we'd have Mick Foley come out again. And then we would go to commercial, as WWE loves to fucking do. Only to come back and have what is probably the best segment of the night, which is Sami Zayn and Mick Foley getting into it a little bit. Sami Zayn calling Mick Foley out, saying, "Listen, pal, you more than anybody else should respect the fact of what I'm doing here. And how many people told you that you couldn't do it? And look where you are now. You were my hero. You were their hero. And now you're just a fraud. You're just a mouthpiece." And it gave me chills. It gave me goosebumps. It was great. And Mick Foley still in the end not caving, maintaining that Sammy's just got to let this go, and that this insatiable desire to exact revenge on Braun Strowman is going to lead to Sammy's downfall. All I can hope is that it leads to Sammy getting frustrated enough to walk the hell out and join Team Blue, because that's where he belongs. This is the guy that should be United States Champion right now, not Roman Reigns. Especially if you're just going to put him back in the main event and push him towards the Universal title. There's no need for it. No need for him to have that belt if that's where you were going to go for it. And what's going to happen if they give it to him? Roman Reigns is going to be the dual champion? Nobody wants to see this. He needs to at least drop the title. Or pull double duty. Defend the U.S. Championship earlier in the night, and then go on to your main event match for the Universal Championship. And if you lose, too bad. You don't need the United States title. You're supposed to be bigger than that. You're Roman Reigns. You're supposed to be main event. The United States Championship is not a main event title. Nothing on this show makes sense. I don't understand it. And to go back to my earlier point, this match would ended up concluding with Roman Reigns getting the pin, clean pin, middle of the ring on Kevin Owens, because Jericho wasn't there to make the save. And it makes Kevin Owens look terrible. You're not making Roman Reigns look any better. Nobody came off looking good. in this match as far as the story goes. It was a good match. They built a good story within the match. I ended up getting invested in it and pulled for Kevin Owens the whole time because I do not like to see my champions being beaten, especially in a non-pay-per-view scenario. Be that as it may, Roman Reigns is your number one contender because he beat Kevin Owens tonight on Raw, and we're going to get that matchup at Roadblock, as I said. Cedric Alexander takes on Tony Nese in a nice little 4-minute appetite palate cleanser. I don't know what you want to call it, because 4 minutes is nothing. It's a tease. And you could tell right away by the pace these guys set that they wanted to get in a lot of shit in a short amount of time. They were wrestling fast. They were moving fast. They were getting to spots fast. You could see. It was just like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like watching fucking tennis. Extreme tennis. With people hopped up on fucking Red Bull. Because that's how that match was. This. Whoa, what the? And then boom, over. Terrible use of the cruiserweights still. I cannot wait till tonight's 205 Live. Gonna come on right after SmackDown. I'm excited for it. I'm worried that being taped at a SmackDown crowd, especially after SmackDown has already been completed, is going to affect the crowd because it's not a typical NXT/CWC crowd. And these crowds are dead during cruiserweight segments, so I wouldn't expect them to liven up just for an additional hour. I don't know. We'll see how it turns out. But the wrestling we're going to get on that show is fantastic. It's going to make everything that they're doing with the cruiserweights on Raw look like complete and total garbage, because it is. Then we had part 1 of Charlotte and Sasha, which we mentioned before. They battled very awkwardly to a double count out, prompting Mick Foley to come out and book the Falls Count Anywhere match for the main event later on tonight. We had Rusev versus Enzo part 2, which is obviously what we'd want to see since part 1 was so fucking compelling. And he squashes this guy in about a half a second. It was not worthy of a rematch. I mean, he destroyed you. How are you going to want vengeance? I fully expected that it was going to be Big Cass getting in there and trying to go one-on-one with the big Russian. But that's not what happened here. We had a rematch that, again, lasted about a minute, maybe 2, because Rusev would kick Enzo in the junk and get himself disqualified, giving Enzo a win over Rusev. But Rusev getting his revenge, I guess, because he kicked his fucking penis and Lana saw his penis, and I don't know. It just didn't make sense. Again, nothing on Raw made sense tonight, as usual. So it just took me out of it. After the Sami Zayn segment, it slowly went downhill from there. Then we had a terribly produced segment. Sheamus and Cesaro sitting in a bar. End up in a bar fight with a bunch of clowns. And whoever the monkey was that edited this segment, produced this segment, whatever, you could not have made it look more cheesy if you slathered it in fucking nacho cheese sauce. It was fucking horrible. The chemistry was not there. It was obvious that they were trying to get out lines and not speaking from their heart. They barely memorized their script. The extras in the background look like a bunch of jerk-off monkeys. Like a bunch of stupid people they just paid $50 to sit here and do this, and then you're going to get beat up and tossed around a little bit. Some of them might be from the training center. Some of them, taking the bumps might be NXT students or whatever. But the acting ability of these guys, you should give them an Academy Award. They were fabulous. That's sarcasm if you don't fucking smell it from here. Because it was the worst produced segment I think I've ever seen them do outside of the ring. They are usually very good at stuff like this. Not that anything they've done before is award worthy, but when Bradshaw and Farouk used to throw down in a bar fight, it was magical. Stone Cold Steve Austin and Booker T in a grocery store. This is great. This one, the cutting, the editing, the acting, the extreme close-ups on the goofs. Why are we showing these jerk-offs that nobody cares about an extreme close-up? Laughing, snickering, making fun of a man 3 times his size? Would you really do that? Jerk-offs. Terrible. And then in the end, this is the only thing that made me laugh, but it probably wasn't supposed to. They clear out the bar. They beat everybody's ass. And then Sheamus is like, hey, Cesaro, let's have a drink. Now, this whole reason they're even in the bar was that they're supposed to celebrate with each other that they don't have to be a tag team anymore. And by the end of this segment, they're toasting each other. And Cesaro says, how about a pint of Guinness? And Sheamus, very happy to oblige, tosses Cesaro a pint of Guinness that the man wouldn't even put his lips on. Why would you make him order a drink that he would not toast and drink with? This is a guy that's doing the whole James Bond thing. He starts the whole thing, I'll take a martini shaken, not stirred. Why didn't he order that again? Because Sheamus can't make it? Why didn't he order a Heineken? Or just say, give me an imported beer? Or give him a glass of fucking water? Whatever it is, we would have been able to clink and drink. But he clinks and then stands there awkwardly for 15 seconds. I'll use my coffee as a... Here's my Guinness. Cheers. That's Cesaro with the Guinness. Are you fucking kidding me? Terrible. Waste of time. Noam Dar versus Rich Swann. We had another cruiserweight match. Another one that lasted maybe 5 minutes tops. The interesting thing about this match is not that Rich Swann gets the win, but that Brian Kendrick was at ringside. Not ringside, at the announce table, which is now at the entrance. I apologize. And, what's the point of this whole thing? Well, they give him the microphone. They let him say some stuff. And he did a good job. He's trying to sell 205 Live. Trying to put over the title match against Brian Kendrick. Kendrick is responding on the commentary side. And I was glad to see that they actually gave him a platform. But knowing the WWE the way we all do, it was only for marketing purposes. They needed him to promote 205 Live. They didn't really care what Rich Swann had to say. But I did, and I was entertained by what he had to say. He came off pretty good. He seemed a little jumpy, a little nervous. Like maybe he didn't want to step on anybody's toes by being too goofy. But that's his thing. He's the goofy dance guy. You can't handle this. And I can't wait to see 205 Live tonight. It's going to be a great show. Then we had the Reigns-Owens match. Like I said, actually a good match. Some very good in-ring psychology. But the finish is just terrible. You had inside the ring action. We had outside the ring action. We had some mat wrestling. We had some technical, holds and grappling. Very good for these two. Kevin Owens made Roman Reigns look fantastic. And that's what Roman Reigns needs. Guys that are going to make him look great. Because he's not great. He's good. But he needs to be protected and performed with in a way to make him look the way Vince wants everybody to see him. Like a giant throbbing cock. Because that's what he loves. I'm sorry. But in any case, as we talked about before, Roman Reigns would get the win. If they build off this performance, and they take what they did last night and apply it to Roadblock and amp it up, maybe throw another stipulation in there, it's going to be a pretty good match. It also could be a complete shitstorm. We don't really know what we're going to get. And I'm not really looking forward to it, if I'm being honest with you. But, because I just seen it. We seen it last night. So now we're going to see it in 2 weeks from now. Again. And is Roman going to win again? I don't know. Then, in what's probably the second best segment of the night, we get an interview with Paul Heyman in reference to the Brock and Goldberg stuff. Paul Heyman could sell ice to an Eskimo, and he sat there and he looked like shit. He was all stubbly. His eyes were about 3 times larger than they usually are. Full of water. Skin looked yellow. Looked like fucking trash. Like he hasn't slept since Survivor Series. And he pretty much comes out and says, hey, listen, we fucked up. We took Bill lightly. We thought we were going to walk right over him. And when Brock took that first spear, he got 2 cracked ribs. And if you crack a rib, you can't breathe. If you can't breathe, you can't fight. And here we are. And Brock is now pissed. And Heyman made a point to mention that he's awoken whatever beast has been laid dormant for the last few months within Brock Lesnar, taking people for granted. And this is what they get. I still don't agree with it. I don't like it. I love Paul Lee, and he sold me on it. I don't care that Brock Lesnar and Bill Goldberg are both going to be in the Royal Rumble because the only reason for them is to cancel each other out. So neither one of them are going to win. And this altercation is going to lead to further conflict between the two, ending and resulting in a WrestleMania match. And hopefully that'll be the end of it. Then we had our tag team title match, which everybody in the world who was an old school fan like me was hoping that they would just do this and give it to the club, give it to Gallows and Anderson, because nobody wants the New Day to be referred to as the greatest tag team in history, especially in comparison to teams like the Hart Foundation, Demolition, and the British Bulldogs, and the Rockers, and the Midnight Express, and the Rock and Roll Express, and the list goes on and on. Guys that competed against the best of the best in the world on a weekly, daily basis. Everywhere they went, they were selling out, and the tag team division back then rivaled maybe even the Intercontinental division, which was stacked with guys like Randy Savage, Ricky Steamboat, Jake Roberts. Come on. So this tag team match frustrates me because this was the last chance for them to do something different and let them get so close and then take it away. That could have been their legacy, that they got so close to breaking the record, because they need to turn heel now too. They've been cheating to win, as they did again tonight. They retain the World Tag Team Championships, the Raw Tag Team Championships. And for what? To break the record of Demolition so WWE can be spiteful and erase that fact from the record books, much like they did to AJ Lee with Nikki Bella. And that's your show, guys. We talked about the main event at the start of this whole thing. Sasha and Charlotte. Falls count anywhere. Started off very awkwardly, as it ended in the previous match. As I stated, they just seem too nervous to click, and they're not allowing their natural instincts to take over. And the last thing we're going to mention is the finishing spot, where they were out up in the crowd. Sasha Banks gets Charlotte in the bank statement, but she's got her wrapped around the steel bars on the stairway, the handrails. And she taps out quick. Not even fight. Like, she locked it in, and Charlotte was like, it's over. Then you have Ric Flair come out and congratulate Sasha Banks. And, the whole thing just short-circuited my brain. What the fuck are they doing? This makes no sense. I know, Charlotte turned her back on her dad months ago, blah, blah, blah. That's her father. He should have came out there to support his fallen daughter, maybe, because Sasha had the balls to say that Charlotte is not representing the Flair legacy well, which she actually is, because she's a cheat to win Weasley champion, just like her dad was. And that would have been better. And then maybe put him back on her side. Let her get back to where she was before they ruined her with Miss Piggy by her side. Terrible. And that's it. We're at 30 minutes. We are going to call this video because Raw was and then it went straight to shit. Looking forward to SmackDown Live tonight. You guys make sure you hit that like button for me. If you have not subscribed, please do so. I am Nick Nightmare. If you haven't watched this week's Nightmare Room, where I discuss Brock Lesnar and Bill Goldberg in depth a little bit, and we have our Superstar of the Week and our Match of the Week, I'll link that in the description below. I'll also maybe have a tag up there so you can click that and go check it out in your spare time. SCW Preview, also up on the channel. Go check out my commentary, my match commentary, if you haven't heard any of that. As always, you guys, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to support the channel however you can. Come back for more. We'll have our SmackDown review later on tonight. If not, sometime tomorrow. This is my boy Blue, the Snowball Microphone. I'm Nick Nightmare. Have a good one, guys.